All right. Good afternoon. My name's Jamie, and it's February 21st, President's Day. U.S. markets are closed. Naturally, I felt like today was the best time for me to take a stab at making a video. And I think over time, I'll probably dive into just more generally how I think about markets. But to start today, because I don't anticipate the quality being all that great. So I'm going to really try and focus just on two things today, and that's going to be Bitcoin and Ethereum. In later videos, we are going to go everywhere, whether it's interest rates, small caps, mid caps, large caps, global equities, currencies, DeFi, you name it. Probably going to cover it. So first, let's just take a look at Bitcoin. I will say I've been involved in the space since, really at the beginning of January 2017. I built a pretty big position in Bitcoin through this period of time, actually through this period of time, and held until March 21. I sold and bought, put it all into Ethereum, and that trade worked out very well. I sold the vast majority of my position in December of 21, and the last quarter at around 30, between 32 and 3,400. I forget what the average price was, but so I've had pretty much a 0% allocation for a while now, and I honestly I don't see myself, unless something significant changes, I don't see myself buying into the market really anytime soon. Why do I say that? Well, the economic backdrop is quite poor. We're likely going to see GDP growth and inflation both decelerate through 2022, and that typically portends to economic weakness. And what's interesting is the Fed is actually hiking, expected to hike rates maybe 7 times this year. I think JP Morgan just put out a note. They're expecting 9 consecutive rate hikes. And that's not usually how it works. The Fed typically begins this tightening stance when the economy is strong, and that's not the case today. And given crypto is a risk asset, one that is a leveraged bet on the debasement of currencies, this is not to say that the long-term viability of Bitcoin as a reserve asset can't be attained. That's not what it is today, even if El Salvador recognizes it as legal tender. And regardless of however many companies have it on their balance sheet. And what's interesting, just a little side note on those, is what's interesting is those are debt instruments, effectively, right? MicroStrategy, um, El Salvador, they've used debt to acquire Bitcoin. And so their interest payment is not in Bitcoin, right? It's in a currency. And so at some point, they may need to sell Bitcoin to transfer into another currency to pay their debt payments. And this is not to say, it's not to challenge the viability of Bitcoin. It's the way that it is. You know, I I'm not agnostic to, well, I'm agnostic to any narrative. I'm not going to hodl ever. I'm not going to I shouldn't say ever, but not in the cards currently. Anyways, back to the charts here. Um, there's not really much that looks good with Bitcoin. The sole bullish, well, quote unquote, bullish narrative I hear is that Bitcoin is building a floor, which I think you could probably argue is the case. That doesn't necessitate forward returns, however. And I am first a preserver of my own wealth. And um, even if there is a floor that's being built here with Bitcoin, there is still the chance that the floor falls through. And, um, we have the backdrop for that to happen. Risk, I think Bitcoin's down what? 67 to 37, 44%. Ethereum too. I think Ethereum, yeah, 44, 45%. These things could, these could get, you could easily see another 50% taken out of these. With the backdrop the way that it is. If we see economic growth surprise to the downside in a period where we are already anticipating decelerating growth, and a Fed that is steadfast in fighting inflation, boy, uh, I don't. It's hard to say where it ends up. Um, yeah, now that I'm looking at these, there's not really much I can say. There is clearly. I'm not sure I'd want to hold at 29. If you are bullish in the short term, it probably really needs to hold these lows. Realistically, it probably needs to settle in here, set a high, a local high, so something around in this area. Really, anything above 4,800 or 48,000, and it needs to remain above, probably well above that low, that whatever this low is, 3,300, in order to be bullish in the short term. And to be fair, that it just doesn't look like that's going to happen. Who knows? Like, it can totally be the case, but in this economic backdrop, I'm not I'm not eager to risk my capital. The same thing with Ethereum. These are two very different cryptocurrencies. They've different goals. They have different roles within crypto. They have different roles within the macro landscape. They are very different. Still, they are highly correlated, and Bitcoin probably leads, right? So if Bitcoin goes down, ETH is probably going down with it. And now just take a quick look at ETH BTC. Okay, so I didn't even know I had kind of done this with this chart. Wow, that's kind of hung in there nicely. Yeah, I don't know. It could lose this. It is showing it's holding up relatively well versus ETH is holding up relatively well versus Bitcoin. We'll see moving forward. I don't have, longer term, I'm not particularly interested in holding Bitcoin. I do see many reasons why Ethereum and other layer one blockchains, even layer two protocols, whether they're roll ups or side chains, something that's scaling the layer one blockchain. Those are all pretty compelling. But for now, I just I'm on the sidelines here, and I would fully expect ETH to, if to come in and retest, at least there, probably realistically, probably these levels, And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. If we get a flush out to 1800, I am 100% going to come back in. Um, that's a pretty wicked drawdown. What would that be? So it says close enough. 1800. Wow, 63%. Yeah. Hmm. It would be interesting to see Bitcoin kind of follow a similar path. It would be nice to see, you know, let's psychologically the how much havoc a break of this level would have on the market. It would be extremely bullish from my perspective. Um, I'm not too interested in buying at this level right here. I'm not going to play around with it. I think there is significant there's room to run lower with ETH and BTC. Last thing, let's just pull up the S&P, see what it looks like. Um, oof. Yeah, same idea. Wow, probably needs to hold in here. 43. Realistically, it's probably coming down into this region here, 39.50. But again, I don't. Here's the thing, I don't see that being like an end of the world scenario. Testing 39.50 would be a 20% drawdown. I think that those are buyable. That's let's see, what is it back to 2020 highs? Or so that's 30% just to pre-COVID highs. Yeah, I mean that could definitely happen. I could definitely see it going. And I don't think, at some point the Fed put hits and the Fed shifts their policy. That's not a bullish thing though. That's not like we can't hang our hat on that. That's a stupid reason to be bullish. Hence why I'm not bullish. But if we do see these events unfold whereby you see continued weakness across risk assets, you know, at some point you gotta step in. Um, treasuries probably do quite well. I think you've seen the long-term chart. Let me see if I can pull it up in Bloomberg real quick. I'm sure you've seen the long-term chart of bonds here. Um, the trend is pretty clear, right? You know, realistically, how much further can rates go? Yeah, I don't know. Probably not much. Yeah, I mean, 2.5 is a pretty good move from here, 60 basis points. But, realistically, I don't know. I don't, I don't know. I'm not sure they can get much above that. Yeah, so that's my first video. I hope to get better moving through as I continue to do this. But yeah, that's kind of just how I'm seeing crypto at the moment. I'm really disinterested in stepping in. There's a lot of economic weakness. It has nothing to do with the geopolitical tensions. I saw Putin is going to sign some separatist territories, sign them as territories, which is essentially a means to invade. So really, none of my thoughts are come down to what's happening with that. Geopolitical crises tend to be one-off events that are buyable dips. Unfortunately, I think that there is downside to the economic outlook, and I am, generally bearish on whether it's equities or or crypto. Yeah, so hopefully be back for more later this week. All right.